What's up, guys? Autofanatic. Thanks for joining me on this review of the 2019 BMW 740i with the M Performance Package. I actually did a review on the newer 7 Series about 9 months ago, along with the Lexus, the new LS 500. And unfortunately, while I was shooting the video of the Lexus, the cameras, I had 3 cameras that were set up on the car outside. They fell off the car and they went bye-bye, so I lost all the footage on those, and I wasn't able to really get back into one of these cars in a while. So I had the opportunity today to borrow this car from a friend of mine, and I wanted to just clean it up a little bit and shoot a little bit of a review for you, because a lot of guys, I did 2 S Class review videos 9 months back. I did the S560 and I also did the S450. I'll put a link to those videos in the description of this video for you guys to check out as well. Because, like I said, in that video, it's very detailed. It's an hour long, the one that I did on the S560. That is the benchmark in the high-end luxury car segment. Now, there's a lot of differences between BMW and Mercedes Benz as a brand and automotive manufacturer. And the one thing you'll notice, and everybody knows it, I mean, BMW's motto has always been the ultimate driving machine. Mercedes-Benz now is the best or nothing. So, whereas Mercedes-Benz is striving for the ultimate in luxury, status, and everything else, BMW, on the other hand, is more focused on the driving dynamic. And that's really how these two cars, the S Class and the new 7 Series, are completely different cars. And I also feel that they compete to different audiences. Like, the guy that's going to buy the S Class, I don't think is going to be the same guy that's going to buy this car. And this particular car does the dynamic driving and the sport a hell of a lot better than the S560, but it doesn't do the luxury, smooth, cushy ride as well as the Mercedes-Benz. So, you know, they're really catering to 2 different audiences, 2 different buyers. This type of car, the one I'm in now, caters to someone like me that is used to a performance car, likes the quicker reactions, and just wants a more dynamic feel. Even though I'm not a big sedan buyer, if I was to buy one, this is the one that I would get. I would go with a 7 Series all day long. I would probably maybe do an Alpina or something a little bit more aggressive than this, because, you know, this is just giving you a trim package. You get an awesome M Performance steering wheel. BMW makes some of the best steering wheels in the world as far as OEM goes. I mean, it just feels perfect in your hands. Whereas the S Class is a bigger, thinner, wood, fancier looking steering wheel. This is all about duty. You know, how does it feel in the driver's hands? How does it feel when you're pushing the car hard? And it's just a really cool car. This one has, of course, the drive select modes, full LCD screen. So we're in the M Performance mode now, which is going to tighten up the steering, give it a little bit of quicker throttle response, faster shifting on the 8-speed automatic. I believe this is a ZF 8-speed automatic, the same one that they've been using for a while. And the programming logic in this gearbox is superb in the sport mode. In the standard comfort mode, it's just okay. It's a little lazy if you want the car to do something aggressive with an upshift or a downshift, or you want to pass somebody on the highway. It's not as aggressive as I would like in the comfort and the normal modes. But for what it is, you know, the car still feels great. A couple of things I wanted to point out between like the Lexus LS and the S Class is, like, those cars ride a lot smoother. Those cars have quieter interior cabins. They have less coming into the cabin, less feedback in the steering wheel, into the chassis. You know, I think that those 2 cars excel in the smoothness and luxury aspect of a high-end luxury sedan than they do performance and dynamic driving. I mean, believe it or not, the S Class drives a lot more dynamic than the Lexus. And to be honest with you, the Lexus is a little numb. There's not a lot much going on as far as to the driver, but it's a great car. You could get in, drive it. It's got the creature comforts. It's super smooth, super refined. The refinement in Lexus, the LS platform, is just incredible. It's just a great car, and I don't think you could go wrong with it. So a lot of guys are going to be cross-shopping these cars, you know, between the S Class, the 7 Series, and the LS Lexus. But to be honest with you, I feel that the BMW 7 Series is in the same category, but it's catering to a different type of buyer. It's catering to the buyer, like, you could probably hear it while I'm hitting some bumps. This car, you feel every bump that you hit in New York. I took it down to the Bronx and New York City earlier this morning, and let me tell you something. the car is 4,400 pounds. And when you start hitting all those bumps, it really starts to beat you up. It beats your body up. Also, you know, you're moving a lot of weight around, 4,400 pounds. So when you're in stop and go traffic and you got the momentum of this big, heavy, massive car, on and off the brakes, on and off the brakes, on and off the throttle, you know, you do come out of the car a little bit fatigued. And that's something that I personally don't like with a lot of these bigger luxury sedans is, you know, you're moving a lot of weight around. But when you're on the highway and you get this thing up to speed, it feels light on its feet. It feels like a new 5 Series. It feels nimble. It kind of shrinks around itself. Now, the monocoque structure of this car and the chassis is pretty damn sophisticated. You got aluminum subframes in the front, aluminum subframe in the back, multi-link suspension. It has aromatic type self-leveling suspension in the rear. It also has a carbon fiber composite structure in some sort of the monocoque. It's got magnesium strengthening up the A-pillars. It's got aluminum. It's got various types of steel. Let me just tell you, it's a very complicated and pretty interesting foundation. The one thing that disappoints me with all of this technology and all of this fancy stuff that's going on underneath the skin is why the car doesn't handle the bumps better than what it should. Now, that's something that disappoints me, because when the front wheels hit something, there's like a 1 second delay and boom, then I feel it in the back. And when by the time that bump gets ridden over by the back wheel, you really start to feel the shock into the cabin. And like I said, with a longer wheelbase car, you know, it's really geared towards a better, smoother, more comfy ride. But believe it or not, in this car, it's not really giving me that effect. It's really giving me more of a, it's trying to take like a luxury car and trying to make it more into a sport sedan. But to be honest with you, I don't know, I think it kind of falls short in that regard. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it's a very big car. It's a very heavy car. So I just threw the car into comfort mode, and I'm going to go on some local roads that are a little bit bumpy. And you guys are probably going to get a good feel for what I was trying to explain regarding the ride quality of this vehicle. I mean, like I said, I was expecting it to ride a hell of a lot better than it does. And my favorite 7 Series ever was the E38. That was a car that came out in 1994 to 2001. I just always loved that car. And to be honest with you, it was one of the favorite 7 Series that I ever used to get to work on. Had a nice look, good chassis, very good seats, good ergonomics, and it was just a really good car overall. And this is a great car, but like I said, you do feel everything that's coming into the cabin in this car. And this particular car has 8,400 miles. So it's got some use on it, New York City abuse. And it still feels really tight, which is good. So in comfort mode, things do smooth out a lot more. But you know, we're on a pretty ripply side road right now. We're doing about 55 miles an hour. And you know, the car is comfortable. But as soon as you start hitting potholes, that's when things don't feel very good in this car. And in the Mercedes Benz S Class, you could hit the same potholes and go on the same roads. And it seems like in the Mercedes, you're almost gliding over them. In the BMW, you're almost hitting them. Boom, boom, boom. All right, here's some bumps right here. You can see the car is, you know, it's taking the shock. But the steering is spot on. It's got really good steering assist. It's not overly weighted. Comparing it to the Lexus steering is a lot lighter, and there's a lot less feedback coming into the steering on the Lexus LS. Regarding the S560, this feels maybe 5% heavier in weight than the S560. If anybody wants to drive these cars back to back and you put them in different modes, you most likely will start to feel the same thing. They're both riding on 19-inch wheels. That seems to be the standard in this segment. You know, 20-inch is optional as well. And of course, with the Mercedes-Benz, you can get the AMG. You could also get the Alpina edition of this car, which I think that would be a great car for me to check out. Would be the Alpina edition. The seats are pretty comfortable. They're not as comfortable as the S560 seats. The leather is the Dakota heavier grain leather. I didn't really get much into the infotainment system. You know, you get a standard CD player, you get your touch screen, Over here, you got your control panel here, which is all standard BMW affair. I'm not really going to get into this. I want to talk about how the car rides and how the car drives and how it feels overall. For anybody out there that wants to buy a car in this segment and wants to know which one is the best driving one out of the bunch and which one is probably going to be the most practical for where you drive and where you live. Because, you know, other parts of the country where the roads are a lot better, this car might ride incredibly smooth and you won't feel those things that I'm feeling in the New York City area. But unfortunately, you know, that's a real good test as to the car's design, suspension architecture, and chassis is how well can it cope with the horrible environment that we have in New York City, in Chicago, in Ohio, in Michigan. You know, there's all different parts of the country that have really, really bad roads, and there's going to be guys that are going to be buying these kind of cars, and they may love them or they may hate them. So the bumps don't really bother me, but I think if I was a much older guy that was used to a cushy, softer ride, this car would not be the one that I would choose. I probably would hate it after driving it for a week. So that's where I just think, you know, the Mercedes Benz S Class still is the benchmark in the segment. It still is the best luxury sedan in the world, you know, in that price point. You know, we're not going to compare it to a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or anything like that. Those are completely different cars and double the price. But yeah, it's just those bumps. Like when the back of the suspension gets over some bad roads, it just feels very unsettled. So this is a great car if you're on the highway and you're going on a long trip and you have a decent highway. You'll enjoy the car a lot. Driving around locally, it's not as enjoyable as I was expecting. Also, the paddle shifters, I absolutely can't stand them on this car. They're too small. They're cheap plastic. You have an incredible steering wheel. The steering wheel is a home run. It's just perfect. It feels perfect in every which way. And then you just had the paddles, which I feel in the wrong spot, and they're the wrong size. And we're going to go back into sport mode now, and it's really cool. We have an LCD screen, and it changes the gauges and the look of everything. You get the Motorsport M badge in the center, and you can kind of configure the suspension and all the settings as you want to tailor the car. So we're going to start shifting it again. Like I said, right now at speed, the suspension tuning feels great. And now we're going to hit some bad bumps at speed, at highway speeds. And what right here, watch. And it just unsettles the back of the car. Whereas on the S Class, it doesn't do that. It seems like it just floats right over it. And you can hear that in the audio, I'm sure, is the worse the roads get, the back of the car, you get a little bit of a hop, you get a little unsettling in the back. And like I said, I'm really surprised at BMW, you know, for designing the suspension as such. I was really expecting this car to have a quieter cabin, a much smoother ride, and be able to take these New York roads a hell of a lot better than they're taking them right now. So it seems like depending on the type of bumps and roads you're hitting, the suspension will react differently. Nowhere when I'm hitting bumps am I feeling the steering, you know, jiggle in my hand. It's not doing that. So we have good isolation with the front suspension and the steering system to what's coming back to the driver. It's just a lot of the unsettling that I'm feeling is coming from the back of the chassis. It's the multi-link in the rear of this car. And it could have something to do with the self-leveling suspension back there. You know, maybe that's not able to adjust quick enough for the environment we're driving on, which is pretty intense. I mean, there are not many cars that could hit these roads and you could actually, you know, say that they do a good job hitting them. You know, that's ranging from, you know, mid-sized cars, SUVs, and the like. Believe it or not, my Alfa Romeo chassis is so damn good that I hit these roads and it doesn't beat me up. It kind of just like, you know, they're there, but it just happens so quickly. And the chassis is so composed, it doesn't bother you. It's when you have these longer wheelbase cars, these heavier cars, and the front suspension and the rear suspension are doing two different things almost simultaneously, that's when you're kind of like, you know, it kind of takes away a little bit of the driving experience and definitely a little bit of the confidence when you want to push this car hard. But we're gonna hit some more, like that's just a small bump right there, and you just feel it. You feel it in your back. Another one. And the paddles are really, they just don't feel like they're in the right spot. So they're very hard to, oh, you feel that again. Now another thing too, this car is on run flats. Now, run flat tires, I think, are probably the worst decision to put on any car. I mean, you can just feel it. It's just, and it significantly affects the ride quality. Now, I think this car with a normal all-season tire or a touring tire would feel a lot better. It would probably take a lot of that harshness out of those impacts that I'm feeling in New York. But like I say, you don't go spend $96,000 and want to, you know, beg the dealer to change your tires out. I mean, you know, there is going to be customers that understand that and they'll change them. And you know, it's because these cars don't have spare tires anymore. But to be honest with you, I rather have a safety seal kit in the back and use the mobility kit and roadside assistance than have run flat tires, because when you hit the bumps in New York, the run flat tires with the stiff sidewall, you get bubbles and you also bend and crack your wheels. And Mercedes and BMW is notorious for bending and cracking these soft cast aluminum alloy wheels. And there's much more cabin noise in this car than the S Class. Now the road's going to smooth out again. Just pass this guy. And the front end of this car really feels good. Why? It's got a lightweight motor. It's got a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6. It's a very compact package, so there's not a lot of weight over the front axle centerline, and it makes the front end really razor sharp, and that's something that I really like about this car, is the front end. I don't like the rear suspension. I don't like what it's doing. I don't like the feedback that I'm getting, but I like the front end. So it's almost like there may have been some compromises in the multi-link design or the dampening of the suspension in the rear of this car. And to be honest with you, I really think automotive manufacturers, I mean, I know they do a lot of testing around the world, but when they come out with a new platform, I think they should bring them to locations like New York, Chicago, Michigan, Ohio, and, you know, put a couple 100,000 miles in these chassis and really fine-tune the geometry and the dampening and, you know, the structural integrity of the monocoque structure. Because, you know, if you could perfect a car under those extreme conditions, then you're going to build a better car overall. So I'm not really sure where the carbon fiber is being used in the monocoque structure of this car, but it's in there. It's kind of like a hybrid design. They also have some carbon reinforced plastics, and it's a whole hodgepodge of various different materials to give the strength and of course reduce weight. But this car is 4,400 pounds, so they didn't really achieve their weight reduction, I guess, that they were going for. I think the only thing saving this car now in the weight department is having the 3-liter twin turbo under the hood. But like I said, when the road is smooth, the car is a dream. It really is. But then again, most cars are you know, that you buy today. I mean, you know, majority of cars today drive pretty well. But when the roads get bad, this is probably not the car you're going to want if you're that type of a buyer that's spending $100 grand on a car that's going to want to be banging around New York. But that's where I think the S Class shines in that department. It just looks a little bit more elegant. It has a little bit more status. It rides better. I like the interior better. Overall, I mean, I'm not a buyer for a car in this segment, but if I was to want to buy one based on luxury, the Mercedes Benz S Class would be the one to choose. If I was to buy one based on sportiness and a little bit more driving dynamics, it would be the 7 Series. But to be honest with you, for me as a car guy and as someone that's into performance cars, I would save the performance car aspect for smaller cars and other cars that I own, and I would specifically be shopping for a long wheelbase luxury sedan like this for comfort. You know, you want high-speed stability, but you want comfort. You want the best in its class, and that's where I think the Lexus and the S Class just do a much better job in the luxury segment for the full-size luxury sedan market in this type of car. I'm getting a little bit of wind noise, you know, coming from the door mirrors. Not terrible, but it's there. But the front end, you know, it feels good. The front end feels really good. It's just the rear suspension. I keep reiterating that I just don't like the way it reacts when the roads get rough. Also, there's not a lot of exhaust tone in this car. When I did the review of the Mercedes S450 and I was shifting the gears and driving it a little bit more aggressively, it had a much more spirited exhaust tone coming into the cabin, and it just felt a little bit more fun. This car is very muted. There's not a lot of sound coming through the cabin at all as far as the engine note goes. Here we go. See how that back end just takes that hop, and it totally drives me insane. You know, brakes are great. BMW, Mercedes, they have some of the best brakes in the industry. No complaints with that. The only complaint is driving a 4,400-pound car in stop-and-go traffic. You know, every time you hit the brakes, it's throwing your body all over the place, and that's where it gets a little fatiguing. But now we're on a smooth road, and this is where this car totally shines. I mean, for me to take this big car and fly up this hill and go through some of these turns and have confidence, you know, I wouldn't do that in an S Class. I just don't feel the confidence in that car, whereas I would drive it a lot slower. You know, we got some nice twisties here. Steering could be a little less assisted, but like I said, I'm asking a lot for a big... Oh, geez, there we go. There we go. That's probably a rim buster. Shit. I know the audio definitely picked that up. Alright, I gotta pull over and I gotta see if there's any damage now. That wasn't good. And that's what I'm telling you guys about, these run flat tires and the suspension in this car. Wow. That wasn't good. So I'm feeling a little vibration now coming into the steering. So yeah, that definitely took a shock to the wheel. Not good. All right, let me park the car. Let me pull over and check that out. All right, we're back. Well, the rim definitely got bent because there's a bubble in the sidewall now. And I'm actually kind of glad this happened while I'm doing this review, so you guys will get a little bit of a better understanding of what I'm trying to tell you guys here with suspensions and chassis. This car does not like bumps at all. And you guys probably are going to hear that in the audio when I go and edit this back, but that was not good. And that was basically not a pothole that we hit. That was just a sunken in sewer cap that we hit. So whereas, like I said, you could drive the car spiritedly, but if you run into a jam, like I just did there, where out of nowhere, you're gonna hit, you know, a pothole in the middle of the road, then it's gonna shock the crap out of you. And it's gonna do it pretty harshly, I'll tell you that now. actually hearing some cabin rattles now after that shot that this car just took coming into the back of the car. And it's a shame, it really is. I'm not sure what kind of went down in the engineering and design development of this car and the chassis, but I'll tell you now, I was expecting a better experience, you know, hitting these bumps and that shock that's coming into the cabin. Then I'm just not getting it. I mean, I'm not saying this car sucks in any way. I just don't think this would be the car for the New York City metro area if you're going to drive it daily. I just think you're going to be stuck on the side of the road with bent rims and flat tires on a regular basis. And if you're a much older guy that may be used to driving, you know, like a Lincoln or a Cadillac or even the new S Class, and you get into this car, it's a much more engaging drive, but all of that shock and effect that's coming into the chassis is probably going to turn you off from buying this car. I think this would most likely cater to a younger professional or someone that may have other high performance cars like an E63 AMG or an M5, and you know, they just want a family vehicle that they can throw everybody in and go on a road trip and do stuff like that, or take clients out. This would probably be that car for that individual because they want a little bit more sport and a little bit more feedback. But hope you guys got some good feedback on this short review video of the 2019 BMW 740i with the M Performance package. And like I said, the best thing I can tell you guys, if you're spending $100 grand, whether you're buying the car or leasing the car, if you're leasing the car, you're going to be putting down a lot of money. You're going to be paying $1,500, $1,600 a month to get any one of these cars in this class. So if it was my money and my decision, the best advice that I could give everyone out there is to drive all of these cars back to back, drive them a lot, drive them more than once, okay? And if you have any concerns about where you drive the car for your daily commute versus where your dealer may be located, you know, see if you can make arrangements with the dealer, and believe it or not, they'll do it for you. When you're buying a car of this caliber, they'll bring the car down to you. And I know they've done that to me before in the past. So see if they can bring the car down to you, and see if you could test drive the car on your local commute or roads that you drive daily. And I think that would probably be the best way as a buyer to really figure out which one is going to work the best for you. Because they're all going to give you the comfort, they're all going to give you the space in the rear leg seat room and all that, and you know, all the fancy electronics and all the features and stuff like that. They're all going to be the same in that regard. You know, some of them are going to do some of the features a little bit better, a little bit more intuitive than others, but for the most part, you're getting a lot of car, you know, in this segment. So the only thing is, go drive them back to back. A lot of guys were asking me for months when I did my S Class videos, go drive the LS and the BMW, and I did. Unfortunately, the videos got lost when the cameras fell off the car, and it was great that I actually am now driving the 2019 version with the M Performance package on it. And like I said, it's a good car, it's a great car, but I don't think it's the best riding car. I don't think the chassis is the best, and I don't think the suspension architecture can really cope with the roads that I was driving on for the last day and a half. So see you guys soon. autofanatic@yahoo.com. Any questions, comments, post it below. If you guys have this car and you live in the New York City area, post some feedback. I want to know, do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you had problems with rims and tires? Have you had problems with the suspensions? Post it below. If you had the Mercedes Benz S Class, please post your feedback regarding that as well below. See you guys soon. autofanatic@yahoo.com. Stay tuned to the channel for more automotive content. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.